Throughout his illustrious career, Clint Eastwood, a Hollywood star known for his tough demeanor, has been involved in some political disagreements. Although he is widely respected, there are several Hollywood figures with whom Eastwood has had serious disagreements that have caused ripples in the entertainment industry. What were the struggles he experienced that significantly impacted his relationships? In the video we are reviewing today, we will explore the factors that led to his disagreements and the aftermath, as well as provide insight into the complexities of his dealings in the movie business. Michael Moore. Criticizing Clint Eastwood. 2014 picture American Sniper, prominent documentary filmmaker Michael Moore has been quite loud. Moore said the movie glorified the Iraq War and its protagonist, Chris Kyle, a shooter with the Navy SEALs who died in 2013. Moore blasted snipers as cowards and said that genuine heroes use lethal force. After rumors circulated that Moore was openly critical of Eastwood's film, he later explained his stance on Facebook. Although he denied mentioning American Sniper in his tweet, he did affirm his belief that snipers are cowards who do not believe in a fair fight. Moore said bad Clint gets Vietnam and Iraq mixed up in his storytelling, but she did praise Bradley Cooper's performance, calling it one of the best of the year. Dinner at the 2005 National Board of Review Awards ratcheted up the tension between Moore and Eastwood. Eastwood made a contentious remark about Moore while accepting an award. There are many things that Michael Moore and I genuinely agree on. Being citizens of a nation that values free speech is something we both take for granted. I will put an end to you, Michael, if you ever come knocking on my door carrying a camera. When Moore first heard the statement, he thought it was funny and laughed it off. But Moore admitted in a 2012 piece for the Daily Beast that Eastwood's comments unsettled him, particularly in light of the previous attacks he had endured because of his anti-war position. The entertainment business has not let the conflict between Moore and Eastwood go away. Everyone thinks I threatened to destroy Michael Moore, so I addressed it in a public event, Eastwood said. It is not accurate, but that isn't a horrible concept, he said, to anxious laughter from the crowd. Moore has voiced his worry about the consequences of such remarks, saying, "This kind of thing wreaked all kinds of havoc in my life because of what this hate speech does to inspire the more deranged among us. They have fundamentally different opinions on how to depict American soldiers in film and the Iraq War, which manifests itself in the persistent animosity between the two directors. Rivals in Hollywood are common, but none ever compared to Clint Eastwood's feud with the man he hated more than anybody. Professional animosity is only one aspect of this scenario. A long simmering resentment, unexpected truths, and personal grudges abound in this story. Come with us as we trace the origins and climax of Clint Eastwood's most destructive and long-lasting animosity. For the big surprise, you'll have to stick around to the very end. Sandra Locke. They started dating in October 1975, not long after Sandra Locke and Clint Eastwood met on the production of The Outlaw Josey Wales. According to Locke, they made out on their first date because of the intense and rapid desire they had for each other. Eastwood allegedly performed "She Made Me Monogamous" to Locke as a way to convey his newfound desire for her, despite his reserved personality. There were a lot of problems in their relationship, despite how dedicated they seemed. Because parenthood wouldn't work for their lifestyle, Locke had tubal ligation and 2 abortions in the late 1970s, according to Eastwood. Both were legally committed to other partners, so while they lived together in Eastwood's Bel Air estate, they never got married. After her breakup with Eastwood, Locke's career suffered a major tumble. She said that her involvement in their legal disputes caused her to be blacklisted in the Hollywood industry, as no one dared to cross Clint. Locke submitted over 30 screenplays to Warner Brothers between 1000 1,990, and 1,993, including those for Junior and Addicted to Love, all of which were rejected. When Eastwood moved in with the Lockes and put Locke's stuff in storage in 1989, it was a traumatic breakup for the marriage. A chain reaction of court fights spanning over a decade ensued as a result of this. In 1989, Locke sued Eastwood for $70 million in palimony, claiming mental anguish and breach of contract. After an out-of-court settlement, Warner Brothers offered Locke a directing deal of $1.5 million. But in 1995, Locke sued Eastwood for fraud after she learned that he had covertly funded this purchase. In 1996, the fraud case was brought to trial, and Eastwood accused Locke of trying to appeal to the jury's compassion with her cancer diagnosis. Both sides claimed victory in the case. Ultimate out-of-court settlement for an undisclosed amount. Locke said afterward that the real reason she fought for her professional rights in court, and not for financial gain, was throughout her career. An iconic Hollywood actor and filmmaker, Clint Eastwood, and an outspoken and innovative filmmaker, Spike Lee, once had a public quarrel that highlighted the collision of their respective strong personalities and creative ideologies. The two war films, directed by Eastwood, Flags of Our Fathers and Letters from Iwo Jima, were the source of contention between these two titans of Hollywood. An event during the 2008 Cannes Film Festival serves as the setting for the story's opening scene. Spike Lee, who is afraid to say what on his mind, harshly blasted Clint Eastwood for the movie's absence of black troops. The movie Flags of Our Fathers, which depicts the famous scene of American troops hoisting the flag at Iwo Jima during World War II, enraged Lee because it did not include any black performers. While many black soldiers were there at the Battle of Iwo Jima, not a single one of them raised their flag during the iconic moment. In response to Lee's critique, Eastwood, who is renowned for his straightforward manner and commitment to historical accuracy, stated that his films were based on real events, and that he strived to be faithful to the historical record. He brought attention to the fact that the black troops seen in the film were not involved in the process of raising the flag. He stopped his mouth and retaliated angrily against Lee. Lee retaliated by accusing Eastwood of being an enraged old man and reminding him that he was not my father and that we were not on a plantation, which only served to inflame the situation further. It was more than simply a dispute that escalated into this verbal battle between Eastwood and Lee. There were underlying problems with representation and the way history was told in Hollywood, and it mirrored that. Lee, a lifelong supporter of diversity and truthful portrayal of black realities in cinema, considered Eastwood's exclusion a major gaffe. While Eastwood used historical evidence to support his creative decisions, the men's differences in opinion allowed the conflict to stew for some time. The media and Hollywood were agog by the drama, and the enmity appeared dormant. Then, the dispute ended in the most unconventional way possible, as if it were a Hollywood movie. It was, of all places, a Los Angeles Lakers sports game. Spike Lee, who is famous for his courtside presence, saw a slew of A-listers: Warren Beatty, Steven Spielberg, and Eddie Murphy. Lee recognized a chance to end the conflict. He unexpectedly contacted Spielberg and announced the end of his dispute with Clint Eastwood. "Clint Eastwood is out of the picture," I told Steven. Steven chuckled and mentioned that he would inform Clint first thing in the morning. I said it was finished. "Okay," he said. Their public feud appeared to come to a close with this surprising statement made during a basketball game. After Spielberg likely informed Eastwood about the message, the dispute ended. With all the intense back and forth that happened before, the finale seems almost strange. Lee and Eastwood continued to make influential and captivating films despite their disagreements. Both Eastwood and Lee had lasting impacts on Hollywood. Eastwood with his unwavering dedication to honesty and authenticity, and Lee with his fervent fight for equality and diversity in representation. John Wayne. Two of the genre's most iconic figures, Clint Eastwood and John Wayne, were embroiled in a battle that was as heated, dramatic, and based on deeply divergent artistic ideas and personal views as the Western genre itself. For many years, the Western genre was ruled by John Wayne, the archetypal cowboy and emblem of American roughness. His film lauded the Old West mythos by depicting cowboys as heroic, almost mythological characters who stood firm for right and wrong. The protagonists of Wayne's films exemplify the classic good guys and bad guys. His conservative beliefs frequently crept into his parts, bolstering traditional American ideals, and his impact was so great that he became a byword for the Western hero. However, during the 60 seconds and 70 seconds, Clint Eastwood became a major player in the Western film industry. Eastwood shot to worldwide popularity after appearing in Rawhide, a TV series, thanks to Sergio Leone's Dollars trilogy. In his depiction of the faceless man, he offered a new, more nuanced, and realistic Western hero who could see beyond simple dichotomies. The revisionist Western, which sought to dismantle the stereotypes surrounding the American frontier, emerged as a result of this shift in perspective, which questioned the oversimplified ethics of classic Westerns. High Plains Drifter, directed by Eastwood and released in 1973, was the zenith of the feud between these two icons. Along with directing the film, Eastwood painted a bleak and ethically gray picture of the Old West in this film. An enigmatic gunfighter recruited to protect a community from bandits, Eastwood plays the role of the stranger. But he is merciless in his execution, and the borders between hero and villain become blurry because of his savage techniques. This was quite different from the heroic cowboys that Wayne depicted. High Plains Drifter horrified Wayne. The pioneers who established the West were dishonored, in his opinion, and the Western genre itself was compromised by Eastwood. Revisionist approach. The bravery and virtue of these early Americans, in Wayne's view, should be celebrated in Westerns, not questioned or diminished. Wayne penned a bitter letter to Clint Eastwood, in which he criticized the film for its portrayal of the pioneers of the West and their lack of authenticity. After Eastwood suggested they work together on a picture called The Hostiles, in which Eastwood would play a young gambler whose estate is won by Wayne, who would play an elderly man, the breach between the two actors widened. The suggestion was rejected by Wayne, further dividing them. Wayne disapproved of Eastwood's interpretation of the Western genre in his refusal. His career was marked by unambiguous acts of heroism, but he considered Eastwood's films as divisive and dangerous to his principles. In response, Eastwood explained his method by saying that he did not intend for High Plains Drifter to be a documentary on pioneer life, but rather a tale. He said that his picture was an analysis of the genre's vital and current themes, the complexity of justice, and the darker sides of human nature. It was clear to Eastwood that the generational divide between him and Wayne was a factor in their divergent views on narrative. This ideological conflict was much more than simply competing cinematic philosophies. Larger cultural shifts were reflected in it. Along with the social and political changes happening in the United States in the 1970 seconds, the film industry was also changing. More sophisticated and critical analyses of American folklore emerged with the rise of new Hollywood. Wayne's films stuck to the values of a bygone age, in contrast to Eastwood's new wave of films that included complicated characters and ethically problematic plots. Eastwood and Wayne may have had a falling out, but they both made lasting contributions to Western cinema. Classics to this day, Wayne's films exemplify the heyday of Hollywood. Western genre. At the same time, Eastwood's films have influenced many directors and critics and have kept pushing the genre's limits. A major disagreement in their respective filmmaking philosophies was laid bare by Leonardo DiCaprio and Clint Eastwood's 2011 picture J. Edgar. Because of his reputation for a streamlined filming process, Clint Eastwood rarely gave actors more than one opportunity to perform a scene. Although it was economical, DiCaprio found it difficult because he was used to a more involved approach to acting. Actress Dame Judi Dench, who co-starred with Leonardo DiCaprio, discussed Eastwood's relaxed approach to directing. She described how Eastwood would regularly use the phrase, "in your own time," rather than action, and how he would sneak up on actors during sequences. Dench and DiCaprio, who were accustomed to more conventional filmmaking techniques, were taken aback by this approach. In one scene shot in the nation's capital, DiCaprio and Eastwood's animosity reached a boiling point. Eastwood pronounced it a wrap, but Leonardo DiCaprio wanted a retake because he didn't think he had captured the necessary emotion. An argument broke out on set when Eastwood, satisfied with the take, turned down DiCaprio's request. If rumors are to be believed, Leonardo DiCaprio lost it and stomped off set when Clint Eastwood advised the cameraman to behave as if they needed to reshoot the sequence but didn't have film on hand. Because of this occurrence, the difference between Eastwood's more relaxed directorial style and DiCaprio's painstaking attention to his art became quite apparent. How DiCaprio and Eastwood bonded on J. Edgar will be different for a long time. Rumor has it that Leonardo DiCaprio is one of numerous stars who have sworn off any future collaboration with Clint Eastwood. This choice is a result of DiCaprio's dissatisfaction with Eastwood's one-take method and the director's reluctance to grant his demands for further takes. Eastwood's directing technique was problematic for both DiCaprio and Armie Hammer. Hammer related an incident in which, while still clutching his screenplay, Eastwood allegedly utilized what Hammer perceived as a rehearsal as the final cut. The performers' struggles to adjust to Eastwood's unusual techniques are further demonstrated by this. What could have made such a famous person hold such resentment? In this episode, we untangle the knot of animosity, treachery, and struggle that defines this notorious rivalry. Indulge in every moment of this mesmerizing tale. Tom Hanks, playing Chesley Sullenberger in Clint Eastwood. Sully was an unusual task for Tom Hanks, who is usually cast as heroic figures or regular individuals thrust into exceptional situations. When Clint Eastwood admitted that he was a typecast actor who often played decent people, the actor embraced it as a challenge. Hanks viewed it as a chance to experiment with his well-known acting face in new ways. The film had a hard time building suspense since everyone knew how the Miracle on the Hudson turned out. Responding to this, Eastwood allegedly cast the National Transportation Safety Board as villains, a choice that real-life investigators have condemned. For Hanks, working with Eastwood as a director was a huge change. In contrast to the conventional, minimalist, and efficient Hollywood style, the director's approach is strikingly original. Eastwood only says, "All right, start the scene," instead of the usual booming action call. Hanks played it straight, saying that this method originated from Eastwood's time working on the TV show Rawhide when he had to use loud signals to frighten the horses. Eastwood utilizes a very low, kind voice to instruct the performers, which Hanks likened to treating them like horses. Instead of yelling "cut" to conclude a scene, Eastwood just says, "That. Enough of that." This subtle method is carried over throughout the film. Hanks said he was terrified of this method at first. Hanks eventually adjusted to Eastwood's distinctive directing approach. Despite some early difficulties, he has recounted his story in public with an equal measure of comedy and reverence. Hanks made a joke on the Graham Norton program about how he hoped he wouldn't get one of Clint Eastwood's menacing faces while filming. The lessons that Hanks took away from his time working with Eastwood were also considered. Being on time and prepared are two things he values highly. He says he prefers to be to the set early so he may be ready to give when asked. This method works nicely with Eastwood's methodical approach to filmmaking. Hanks and Eastwood's partnership was fruitful in the end. With a budget of $60 million and a critical and commercial success, Sully earned $240 million. In addition, Sullenberger complimented Hanks on the performance, which proved that the actor could successfully adapt to Eastwood's unconventional style while still giving a riveting performance. Mario Puzo, both Sergio Leone and Clint Eastwood's careers took a major leap forward when they worked together. The two accomplished a lot together, even though they couldn't communicate well because of linguistic obstacles. They initially teamed forces while they were both at comparable phases of their careers. Leone was born in 1929 and Eastwood in 1930, barely a year apart. The spaghetti western genre was born from their collaboration on 1964's A Fistful of Dollars, which also started their careers. The sardonic, sophisticated, and violent new wave of American westerns breathed fresh life into Italy's cinematic landscape. Numerous knockoffs of A Fistful of Dollars flooded the market after its breakthrough. In 1965, the team collaborated again for a little more money, and this time it was much more successful, further solidifying spaghetti westerns' reputation with viewers. Eastwood shot to stardom after playing the anonymous man in these flicks. His iconic prominence in the Western genre was further cemented when he reprised this role in The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. It was unexpected that Eastwood declined Leone's offer to feature in Once Upon a Time in the West, given the phenomenal success of their prior collaborations. This choice was influenced by several reasons. To start, Eastwood was sick and tired of the director's lengthy and expensively drawn-out setup procedure. Then, Eastwood was displeased that he didn't get as much screen time as co-star Eli Wallach in G.I. Joe, Good, Bad, and Ugly. Additionally, Eastwood thought Leone's idea for the Once Upon a Time in the West opening sequence to be too complex and perplexing. It dawned on Eastwood that he would be reprising a role he had already played, even though other actors would be portraying more interesting characters. In the end, Eastwood turned down the part because he thought it was about pasta. James Coburn, who had been considered for various Leone films in the past, was finally granted the role of harmonica. Leone and Eastwood's relationship deteriorated as time went on because they were both bitter. While Eastwood was irritated that Leone never acknowledged his work, Leone was distressed by how fast Eastwood's career took off in comparison to his own. The classic joke made by Leone, who implied that Eastwood was little more than a puppet, was that he only had two facial expressions, with and without a hat. To this, Eastwood took credit for cutting words and scenes from the original script that would have made the anonymous protagonist less interesting and more enigmatic. In a later interview, Leone gave Eastwood a subtle compliment that revealed his admiration for his acting chops by drawing comparisons to Robert De Niro. Clint Eastwood dons an armor suit and, with a rusty clang, lowers the helmet. Svisor. That lowered visor is the whole essence of his persona. Bobby suffers, and Clint yawns, he said, highlighting his impression of the contrast between their acting styles. Even though they had a falling out, the influence that Leone and Eastwood had on the Western genre and each of their careers is still visible. Their collaboration revitalized a dying subgenre and made cinematic history by establishing a new subgenre altogether. Shirley MacLaine. Clint Eastwood, a Hollywood legend, co-starred with Shirley MacLaine in the 1970 Western Two Mules for Sister Sarah. An American mercenary helps a nun during the French invasion of Mexico in this film, which is sometimes shown on Channel 5. Despite this, the on-screen dynamic was far from harmonic, and the off-screen dynamics produced a great deal of turmoil. Before Clint Eastwood was cast, Elizabeth Taylor was considered for the starring role. Eastwood was eager to reunite with Burton after their successful partnership on Where Eagles Dare. But Taylor chose to work with Burton on his most recent production in Spain, thus MacLaine was cast in the part. At first, Eastwood and director Don Siegel were apprehensive about casting MacLaine because of her unusual film presence and pale complexion. After her performance in Sweet Charity, the studio had great hopes for her, despite its doubts. Ultimately, the studio's assurance triumphed over their skepticism. Problems started to emerge between MacLaine and Siegel as soon as filming started. She had too much confidence and an unfeminine attitude, which made her a pain for the director to deal with. Their relationship was marked by regular arguments, which turned the set into a battlefield for egos and tempers. The holdup in processing the video was something that irritated MacLaine. Due to the need to send the dailies to California and subsequently return them, there were considerable delays caused by filming south of the U.S. border. Seeing the film for the first time frightened MacLaine since her role, a prostitute pretending to be a nun, needed much more subdued artificial eyelashes. Much to her dismay, consistency required that she retain them. Curiously, MacLaine's memoirs largely avoided discussing Eastwood. She completely avoided bringing him up in an interview, even with Oprah Winfrey. But at the TCM Film Festival, she shared a funny story that gave an insight into their working relationship. When we were working with Sister Sarah's Two Mules, his horse started behaving strangely. I could tell he is a genuine Republican at this point. He dismounted, gave the horse a good look, and then gave him a good smack. Despite his reputation for being reticent and unyielding, Eastwood had his perspective on filming. The famous duo had to tread carefully through a volatile situation since his normally reticent personality contrasted with MacLaine's fiery disposition. Despite the turbulence that occurred on site, Eastwood and MacLaine's Two Mules for Sister Sarah is nevertheless a major chapter in both filmographies. Two Hollywood icons, each with their own distinct charisma and acting style, have a complicated relationship in the film. Both actors maintained high-profile careers after the film. Essay debut. While MacLaine kept captivating audiences with her performances, Eastwood became one of Hollywood's most respected filmmakers and actresses. Their tense experience filming Two Mules for Sister Sarah was but a blip on the radar of their legendary careers. Known for his gruff personality in real life as well as in his films, Clint Eastwood is a legendary character in Hollywood. But underneath that icy exterior is a legacy of dogged persistence and an uncompromising style of filmmaking. This trait of Eastwood's is on full display in his infamous quarrel with Philip Kaufman, which occurred in 1976 while filming The Outlaw Josie Wales. To set the scenario, by the mid-1970s, Eastwood had already established himself as a prominent actor and director. When it came to his job, he was known to be quite serious and unyielding. The rebel outlaw Josie Wales, a book by Asa Earl Carter writing as Forrest Carter, was the inspiration for The Outlaw Josie Wales. Although the story was captivating, the book's political overtones were divisive since the author had strong opinions. In his early days as a film director, Philip Kaufman aimed to stay true to the tale of the novel while removing the film from the author's political views. Kaufman's and Eastwood's visions for the film. plot were at odds with one another. Once Eastwood placed Sandra Locke in the picture, the creative strain that had been building up to that point finally burst. No ordinary actress could compare to Locke. Kaufman was against her casting, even though she was Eastwood. Lover. Eastwood. Friendship with Locke deepened. Kaufman. Jealousy flared up, fueling the growing tension between the two. Eastwood took a daring and unexpected step as the conflict intensified. He made the executive decision to become the director himself. To have Kaufman dismissed, he went to producer Bob Daly for assistance. After all the work that Kaufman had put into the project, this choice was not made lightly, but Eastwood was so adamant about getting his way that he eventually succeeded. There were rapid and severe consequences stemming from this choice. Warner Brothers and Eastwood were fined $60,000 by the Directors Guild of America, DGA, which was incensed by Kaufman. Sudden firing. A new DGA regulation, colloquially called the Eastwood Regulation, was created as a result of this occurrence because of its significance. The purpose of this regulation is to ensure that producers and performers cannot remove a director in the middle of a production and then assume control themselves. Scott Eastwood. This connection between Clint Eastwood and his son, Scott Eastwood, has been distinguished by periods of stress and tight discipline that some may describe as a feud. Even though they have a link that is built in respect and adoration, their relationship has also been marked by moments of conflict. When Scott was a teenager, one of the most significant instances that shows the friction that exists between Clint and Scott took place. A home party was attended by Scott, who was 16 years old at the time, and Catherine, who was 14 years old at the time. Because Scott left the party without his sister, it is possible that he did not completely comprehend the seriousness of his conduct. The reaction that Clint had when he found out was something that Scott characterized as a punch to the face, an unmistakable illustration of Clint's no-nonsense approach to parenting was the strong rebuke that he issued, which stated, "You do not ever leave your sister at a party, ever." A long-lasting impact was made on Scott as a result of this occurrence, which also brought to light the strong, traditional discipline that Clint instilled in his children. The words tough love are a good way to describe Clint Eastwood's approach to parenting. He was a firm believer that the best way to instill in his children the values of honesty, responsibility, and hard work was to teach them through strict methods. In contrast to the majority of parents in Hollywood, Clint did not offer his children any assistance, and instead insisted that they work hard to make their way in life. This method, although it was effective in teaching strong principles, also produced a stressful atmosphere for his children, who had to negotiate the challenges of living up to their father's high expectations. Even though Clint was a great actor and director, his rigorous work sometimes required him to spend time away from his family. It is quite probable that this absence played a role in the development of a sense of disconnection and frustration between him and his children, particularly Scott. As a result of spending most of their childhood in Hawaii with their mother, Jacqueline Reeves, Scott and his sister Catherine never had many opportunities to engage with Clint throughout their early years. It is possible that the infrequent nature of these meetings contributed to the pressure that was already there in their relationship. Even though Clint attempted to teach Scott life skills while they were together, there is also a disagreement over Scott's birth certificate, which is another source of tension in their relationship. There is a statement on Scott's birth certificate that states, "Father declined," which indicates that Clint did not accept his fatherhood. The fact that this disavowal was both legal and symbolic is likely to have contributed to Scott's sentiments of bitterness or annoyance, which added a degree of complication to the relationship between the father and son. A career in acting is something that Scott has chosen to pursue, much as his father did, despite the conflicts that exist between them. It is beyond a doubt that Clint's reputation and influence in Hollywood have had an impact on the professional options and possibilities available to Scott. On the other hand, Scott has been forced to negotiate this route while taking into account the towering reputation of his father, which may serve as both a source of incentive and a point of pressure. When speaking in public, Scott frequently expresses his respect for his father, Clint, expressing his admiration for his knowledge and accomplishments, respect and a desire to gain knowledge from his father. Extensive expertise are the two defining characteristics of their relationship, according to him. On the other hand, behind this public mask, there have most certainly been private difficulties and unsolved issues that have arisen as a result of Clint's severe parenting style and the intricacies of their family relations. This brings us to the conclusion of the video that we have been using. We appreciate you watching. Now is the time to click on the next video that appears on your screen so that you may experience further exciting tales